Mother never returns home. 18 years later, her family discovers the reason. Michael and Rebecca had a loving marriage for 7 years, during which they were blessed with 5 children. Their youngest, Lily, was just 1 year old when Rebecca suddenly disappeared without a trace. Michael was heartbroken but knew he had to remain strong for his children. For 18 years, he devoted himself to raising them, putting his own life on hold. He never remarried, his heart too full of the love he had once shared with Rebecca. As the years passed, Michael found solace in his children's growth and achievements, yet the mystery of Rebecca's disappearance haunted him. He had searched tirelessly in the early years, but no clues had ever surfaced. His life became a routine centered around his children, with little room for his own desires or hopes. When Lily, their youngest, turned 19 and left for college, the house grew quiet in a way that Michael had never experienced before. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, he was alone. The absence of the daily demands of fatherhood left him with a deep sense of emptiness, and he realized that he had never truly confronted the loss of Rebecca. The time had come to seek closure, not just for himself, but for the family he had held together for so long. Michael decided to return to the place where he and Rebecca had first met, a secluded cabin in the Vermont woods. It was a place of profound significance, filled with memories of their early love, where they had spent countless hours talking about their future. He had avoided the cabin for years, unable to face the memories it held, but now it seemed like the only place where he might find answers. Arriving at the cabin, Michael was overwhelmed with nostalgia. The cabin looked exactly as it had years ago, untouched by time, but a sense of unease lingered in the air. He felt as though Rebecca's presence was still there, as though the walls themselves held the echoes of their laughter and whispers of love. Inside, Michael noticed an old, dusty journal partially hidden under a loose floorboard. With trembling hands, he opened it and immediately recognized Rebecca's handwriting. The entries revealed a shocking secret, one that had been buried for nearly 2 decades. Rebecca's journal told a story of heartbreak and unimaginable sacrifice. After Lily was born, Rebecca had gone for a routine checkup and discovered that she had terminal cancer. The diagnosis was devastating, and she was consumed by the fear of what her illness would do to her family. Unable to bear the thought of her children watching her waste away, and not wanting to burden Michael with the pain of seeing her suffer, she made the agonizing decision to leave. Rebecca returned to the cabin where she and Michael had first met, seeking solace in their cherished memories. She had planned her departure carefully, leaving no trace, knowing that Michael would never stop searching for her if he believed she might still be alive. She spent her final days in the place where their love had begun, finding peace in the woods and their shared memories. Rebecca's final entries were filled with love and sorrow. She wrote about her deep love for Michael and their children, expressing her hope that they would find happiness and strength without her. She described her last day, spent surrounded by nature, reflecting on the life she had lived and the family she had loved so dearly. Tears streamed down Michael's face as he closed the journal. He felt a mix of emotions, grief for the years lost, but also a profound sense of understanding. He now knew that Rebecca's disappearance had been an act of love, her final gift to him and their children. Stepping outside, Michael followed a path through the trees, his heart heavy yet determined. In a small clearing, he found a weathered gravestone with Rebecca's name on it. The sight brought him both sorrow and a deep sense of closure. She had been there all along, resting in the place where their love had first blossomed. Michael knelt beside the grave, whispering his love and gratitude. He told Rebecca about the children, how they had grown into remarkable individuals, how he had missed her every day but had lived for their family. He promised her that he would finally find peace, knowing that she had done what she believed was best. As Michael sat by Rebecca's grave, the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light through the trees. For the first time in 18 years, he felt a sense of release, a lifting of the weight that had burdened him for so long. He realized that Rebecca had found peace in her final days, and now so could he. Michael stayed by Rebecca's grave until the last light of day faded into twilight. The quiet of the Vermont woods enveloped him, and he felt a sense of connection with the woman he had loved so deeply. The grief that had weighed on him for nearly 2 decades began to transform into something more bearable: acceptance, perhaps even a strange form of peace. As the stars emerged in the clear night sky, Michael rose from the ground, his knees aching but his heart feeling lighter. He knew he couldn't stay at the cabin forever. There were still responsibilities waiting for him back home. But he also knew he needed to spend just a little more time in this place where so much of his past was preserved. Inside the cabin, he found himself drawn to the journal again. He carefully placed it on the wooden table by the fireplace, deciding that he would take it with him, a piece of Rebecca to bring back home. It was her final gift to him, a way to understand the choices she had made, and it would help him keep her memory alive in a way that wasn't filled with unanswered questions. Michael spent the next few days at the cabin, revisiting the places that had meant so much to him and Rebecca. He took long walks through the woods, retracing steps they had taken together, and spent hours sitting by the lake where they had once dreamed about their future. He talked to Rebecca as if she were still there, sharing stories about their children and reflecting on the life they had built together, even in her absence. On his last morning at the cabin, Michael awoke with a sense of clarity. He realized that Rebecca's decision, as painful as it had been, had allowed their children to grow up in a home that was filled with love rather than sadness. Her sacrifice had been an act of love, protecting them from the harsh reality of her illness. And in her own way, she had found a way to stay close to him, choosing to spend her final days in the place where their love had first taken root. Before leaving, Michael visited Rebecca's grave one last time. He placed a bouquet of wild flowers he had gathered from the woods on the grave, a simple gesture that felt right. As he stood there, he made a silent vow to live the rest of his life in a way that honored the love they had shared. He would continue to care for their children, now grown, and find joy in the life he still had ahead of him. Driving away from the cabin, Michael felt a bittersweet mixture of sadness and hope. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Grief doesn't simply disappear, but he also knew that he had found something invaluable: closure. The mystery of Rebecca's disappearance had haunted him for so long, but now he understood the truth. And in that understanding, he found the strength to move forward. When Michael returned home, he shared the journal with his children. It was an emotional moment, one filled with tears and long embraces. The truth of Rebecca's disappearance was hard for them to hear, but it also brought a sense of peace. They had always wondered what had happened to their mother, and now they knew. Like Michael, they found solace in the knowledge that Rebecca had made her choice out of love. Over the years that followed, Michael continued to visit the cabin, making it a place of reflection and remembrance. He found comfort in the rituals he established there, visiting Rebecca's grave on important anniversaries and spending quiet moments in the woods where they had once walked together. The cabin became a sanctuary, a place where he could feel close to her and the love they had shared. Michael also began to allow himself to live more fully. He reconnected with old friends, traveled to places he had always wanted to see, and even found joy in simple pleasures like gardening and reading. He knew that Rebecca would have wanted him to be happy, to find peace in the life they had built together and the future that lay ahead. As the years passed, Michael watched his children grow into their own lives, finding love, careers, and happiness. He took pride in knowing that, despite everything, they had turned out well. Rebecca's sacrifice had not been in vain. In time, Michael himself grew old. His hair turned gray, and his steps slowed, but his heart remained full of the love that had sustained him through so many years. He continued to visit the cabin, even when it became harder to make the trip, always feeling Rebecca's presence there. One final time, when he felt the weight of years heavy upon him, Michael returned to the cabin. He knew it would be his last visit, and he was at peace with that. He spent the day in quiet reflection, saying his goodbyes to the memories that had shaped his life. As the sun set, he made his way to Rebecca's grave, where he sat down, resting his back against the gravestone. Michael closed his eyes, feeling the cool evening breeze on his face. He thought of Rebecca, of the life they had shared, and the love that had endured even in her absence. A deep sense of contentment filled him as he whispered, "I'm ready, Rebecca. I'm ready to see you again." And there, in the place where their love had first blossomed, Michael found his final rest, reuniting with Rebecca in the peace of eternity. Their story, filled with love, sacrifice, and enduring connection, came full circle, leaving behind a legacy of devotion that would be remembered by those who came after. As the cool evening breeze whispered through the trees, Michael's breathing slowed and a peaceful stillness settled over him. The Vermont woods, which had witnessed the beginning of their love and the heartbreaking separation, now became the silent witness to their reunion. Michael's soul seemed to sigh in contentment as he drifted into a serene sleep, his final thoughts filled with the image of Rebecca's smile, the warmth of her embrace, and the deep, abiding love they had shared. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a gentle light over the small clearing. A hiker, drawn by the beauty of the woods, stumbled upon the scene. He approached cautiously, his heart heavy with the realization of what he had found. Michael's face, relaxed and peaceful, gave the hiker pause. There was no sign of struggle, only the quiet acceptance of a man who had found the end of his journey. Word soon reached Michael's family. His children, now adults with families of their own, came together at the cabin, the place that had become so significant in their lives. They grieved the loss of their father, but they also understood that he had found the closure he had long sought. In the place where their parents' love story had both begun and ended, they honored his memory with a quiet, private ceremony. Gathered around the grave, Michael's children shared stories of their father, of the man who had raised them with unwavering love and dedication. They spoke of his strength, his kindness, and the sacrifices he had made to ensure they had a good life. They read passages from Rebecca's journal, the words of a mother who had loved them so deeply that she had chosen to spare them the pain of watching her suffer. In that clearing, surrounded by the beauty of nature, they laid Michael to rest beside Rebecca. It was fitting, they thought, that their parents would be together in the place that had meant so much to them. The gravestones, side by side, were simple and unadorned, yet they spoke volumes about the love and sacrifice that had defined their lives. As the years passed, Michael and Rebecca's children made it a tradition to visit the cabin each year. They brought their own children, sharing with them the story of their grandparents, a story of love, loss, and the enduring connection that had shaped their lives. The cabin became a place of family gatherings where memories were shared and new ones were made. The journal Rebecca had left behind became a treasured family heirloom, passed down through the generations. It served as a reminder of the strength and resilience that had been required to make difficult choices out of love. For the family, the journal was more than just words on a page. It was a testament to the enduring power of love and the lengths to which someone might go to protect those they care about. As the generations grew, the story of Michael and Rebecca became a cherished part of family lore. Their great-grandchildren, hearing the tale for the first time, would sit wide-eyed as they learned about the cabin in the Vermont woods, the mysterious disappearance, and the love that had brought their great-grandparents together again in the end. And so, the legacy of Michael and Rebecca lived on, not just in the memories of those who had known them, but in the hearts of the generations that followed. The cabin, once a secluded retreat in the woods, became a symbol of enduring love, a place where their story continued to inspire those who came after. In the end, Michael and Rebecca's story was not just one of tragedy and loss, but of love that transcended time and distance. It was a story of sacrifice, of making hard choices for the sake of those we love, and of the peace that comes from knowing that love endures, even beyond the boundaries of life itself.